Hello, everybody. Anybody out there? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Melinda. How you doing? You're the first one here, I see. Apartment prepper. What other one? Don't tell me I have two again. Let me go in here and check real quick. No, no. Okay, let me go to YouTube. Hello, Butch. Melinda, apartment prepper. And apartment prepper said that I can't get into the other one if there is another one. Um, I tried on YouTube. There is not one on StreamYard. And so let me see here if I can try again. Okay, go here. Try it a different way here, see what I can do. Oh, well, I don't know how to do that, I guess, because I'm stuck. I have to schedule something new to get into anything scheduled in there. We'll just go with what we've got. I'm trying to do everything through StreamYard, and so I don't know why it's doing it double, but I'm doing everything in StreamYard, and then every once in a while it'll kick something over to YouTube as well. Hi on defense, and okay, so it looks like we got about 4 people here. So let's go ahead and get started. This was kind of a depressing chapter, if you will. So we're talking primarily about violence in a post SHTF environment, and it was a rather short chapter, thank God, but I think it's kind of appropriate to what we're seeing going on right now. Gosh, the world is in turmoil. We've got basically the British Parliament. The government there has been overthrown with Boris Johnson's resignation. Then they've got a whole bunch of members of Parliament who have resigned as well. Sri Lanka has had its government toppled, and they're in humongous debt. There's just stuff going on all over the world, and it's unbelievable, the amount of violence. Chicago broke another record with weekend violence, and just stuff going on like crazy all around the place. Okay, so Selco says that there are 2 types of violence. What are they? Thank you, Apartment Prepper. Yeah, on the fence, there's a lot going on, and it's really crazy. My daughter and my grandson have both come down with the positive with that thing that's going around. They've been going around for 2 years. So, and his 4th birthday is coming up Friday, so we're going to miss it because they'll be in quarantine. There's just the world is full of surprises for us. And I don't know what else is going to happen. Of course, we got other things happening too. On the 18th, the railroad strike goes forward unless the president intervenes and declares it a national emergency and says that they have to work. But then he's been very pro-union and since he came into office. So they gave him an awful lot of money. I doubt if he's going to do anything to stay the railroad strike. And then, of course, we have California just passed a new law that only unionized truckers are allowed on the roads in California. And so about 80% of our nation's trucking is independent operators, owner operators. So about 80% of the trucks won't be allowed in California. They've already tried it basically with, they had some restrictions that went into effect at the beginning of the year regarding, hi Bouger Prepper. They had, those restrictions regarding the age of the truck and all different kinds of things. They had to meet California emissions standards and everything else. And that basically knocked out about 60% of the trucking industry not being able to go in. We saw him put the union only into the port of Los Angeles, and that slowed things down. Now we have this thing where trucks are going to be taking them to an exchange point on the border with California, and union trucks will take them to Arizona border, and then non-union trucks will pick up that trailer at the Arizona border and transport it. But it's just going to put another kink in the supply chain. So it's crazy. So the 2 types of violence, according to Selco, well, he says that there's basically necessary and unnecessary violence. And so some of the necessary violence that he talks about, are things like self-defense and primarily self-defense. And then there are some justifiable other violence that could, be out there. And then there's unnecessary violence, and that seems to be the preponderance of it. And he recommends that when we're put into a situation where it appears that violence could transpire, he makes a recommendation as far as eye contact. I don't know if you've noticed it, but if you maintain direct eye contact with an animal, they perceive that as being threatening. And, if I could get Addie over here. Hey, Addie, come here. Let's do an experiment. Come here, sweetheart. Addie, puppy, come here. She won't come. But if I look directly into Addie's eyes and she looks directly into mine, she'll start growling within a minute or two. That's considered very aggressive behavior, is to look another animal directly in the eyes. And same thing with human beings. You'll find that when people get into a staring contest, one's going to look off first, and that's going to be the loser, if you will. But Selco says that you don't want to look up, because if you look up, if you're looking, we call it looking down your nose at somebody. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. But Max is a good boy in comparison to my argumentative Addie. But if you look down your nose at somebody, that's a feeling that you're being arrogant towards them. You feel better than they are. And then likewise, if you look down, when you're answering or talking with them, that's a form of submission. So what he recommends is looking aside or looking to the side. So I don't like that personally myself. I've had a couple customers come into the office, and hi, Pat. Had a couple of customers come into the office, and they would never look me in the eye. They'd always look off, or they'd turn their head and would never look at me. I just don't trust those people. So I find that kind of a symbol of not being able to trust people. Hi, Mary. But he recommends looking, not looking down, not looking up, but looking to the side. Now, here's another thing. Have you ever noticed that when Muslim diplomats get into negotiations with foreign countries, they always wear sunglasses? And there's a reason for that. In intelligence, they taught us that, you can tell whether a person is telling the truth or not by the direction that their eyeballs go. And so if looking right now, so you can look at me, so it'll be to your right, to my left. If I'm looking up to the left, that's the left side of the brain is fact and history, and dominated by the right hand. And so that's going to be, if I look up to my left corner of my brain like this and look for the answer, I'm looking for the truth. On the other hand, if I look up to the right, then that's your fiction part of your brain, and you're basically creating a response. So Arab people, Muslim people in particular, don't like to have their eyes exposed when negotiating, because their eyes can give a telltale sign of whether they're telling the truth or lying. And the same thing with the pupils will dilate a little bit when you tell a lie. So very interesting how the eyes can deceive you, especially in a violent type of a situation. And so people have been trained to do that. Absolutely, Bouger. Absolutely. Okay. So, but he says, don't look them in the eye. Don't look straight on. That's challenging. Don't look down your nose. That's a sign of arrogance. Don't look down. That's a sign of submission, but try to turn a little bit to the side. And that will be your best way to interact with somebody who is appearing to be aggressive with you. He also says that one of the bad things is that we are our own worst enemy. And sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for what we can do in that type of a situation. And at times we over assess what we're capable of doing. And so, make sure you keep your ego in check. And one of the things they taught us in martial arts was try to keep emotion out of it. And when you get emotion involved in any kind of a confrontation, when you get your ego involved, when you get your emotion involved, that's when you're putting yourself on the chopping block. You want to remain as stoic, as perceptive as possible, and be aware with all five senses what's going on, so that you can be in a better position to react rather than being reacting based on your senses, your emotions. But he also says that the absolute best way to handle any kind of conflict is What? Actually, this was one of the best military commands I've ever heard in my life. And it was in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And the Teutonic Knights came upon the cave of the man-eating rabbit. And so Monty Python gives a military command that I think is appropriate to what we need to apply here in this situation. Absolutely, Melinda. The command that Monty Python gives is run away. And so just turn and walk away. Disengage from any kind of a situation that you feel is going to be a confrontational situation. Now, my recommendation is to take 3 or 4 steps backwards before you turn. And don't fully turn your back to the person, because that could be, detrimental to your health. But yeah, Melinda, absolutely. Go the other way, run away. Be peaceful but brave. Absolutely. You don't want it to be a perception you're running away out of fear. You're just running away to avoid confrontation. And later on, one of my favorite quotes so far of this book comes up later on, and I think you'll enjoy it. And I think that's where keeping your emotions out of it, Pat. I think that's a very wise statement you're saying, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep your emotions out of it. You're trying to keep your ego out of it. And you're trying to analyze what are the advantages and disadvantages. And, so you can, in all reality, make a better judgment call as to whether to stand your ground or as to whether to back up and live for another day to fight another way. Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Especially if you're outnumbered. Oh my gosh, then definitely walk away. Let me see where we are here. Okay, he also talks about 2 different kinds of predators. And I think this is important. We focus on this for a minute. He says that there are 2 different types of predators, and this is on pages 246 and 247. And I'm sorry, 245. And I think we need to differentiate between the 2, because one of them, is quite common, especially with all these things we're seeing on a lot of the channels right now, talking about wolf preppers. And, so let's talk about that for a minute, because that fits very well into one of these 2 types of predators. So on page 246, he says that the 2 types of predators are resource predators and process predators. So resource predators just want what you have. And so if you're well defended, they aren't going to burn down your house because they want what's in your house. So, they aren't going to attack it and destroy the contents if that's what they want. Now, the other type is a process predator, and that's more of the criminal mind that we've been associated or know a little bit about here in the recent past. Yeah, I don't know why it's making such a wide thing. I was on Cynthia Briggs' channel the other night, and she was talking about wolf predators, and my theory behind that is I'm glad that they're announcing themselves, because now we know to be prepared for them, and we can come up with a defensive plan. Who would have thought of that 2-3 weeks ago? That it was really that valid of a threat. But now that we know it's a valid threat, we can come up with some defenses to ensure that they aren't the threat that they perceive themselves to be. And now Selco also further subdivides process predators into 2 subtypes. And what are those 2 subtypes? Oh, Mary, a wolf prepper. It's just it's been something that's been on a lot of the channels here recently. A wolf prepper is someone who says, "Why should I prepare for SHTF when all these other people around me are preparing? I'll just get a whole bunch of bang bangs and come take it from you if there's SHTF. There's no need for me to spend a whole bunch of energy and effort and time and money preparing when I can just take what you have." So that's the wolf prepper. And they're pretty much lone preppers as well. You don't see them in large groups yet. I think that groups of them will form, and Selco talks about that in his original writings, the formation of gangs and groups and how they kind of coalesce and become great threats. And so we can look for those to happen probably when SHTF happens. I think some of the natural groups. The Saldaños and the what do they call them? The Norteños and the Crips and the Bloods and all these kinds of people. So, those types of groups are naturally going to form. Okay, so the subtypes of process predators are charm attackers and surprise attackers. So charm attractors basically try to get you curious, or they try to find something that they have in common with you, so that you kind of give them a little bit of trust, and then they're going to have you go with them. When they get you to somewhere else, then they're going to that's when they get you into the back alley and bang you over the head or whatever the case might be. And yes, absolutely, Boucher. And then the other one's surprise attacks, and so that's when they just you see that happening a lot. There was a gentleman, an 87-year-old gentleman, who was attacked on the streets of New York. Somebody just came up from behind him and smacked him over the back of the head and killed him. So that's the surprise attack. Those are people who are planning it in advance to be violent right there on the spot and take advantage of the situation. So that's kind of puts this in the mindset of a killer. My personal opinion, for what it's worth, is that anybody who takes the life of another human being has to be insane at the time that they do that. And even in combat, and that's why we have 22 suicides a day right now, is because, when you pull the trigger and you're looking down the sights and somebody's life is ended, that affects your mind for the rest of your life. And so I think that, there has to be something wrong with somebody for them to willingly take another human being's life. And so you have to understand, these people don't think the same way that we do. So some of the things, some of the mindsets of a killer, number one, is kind of different from all the others. And that is that there's self-defense. So you can, of course, kill in self-defense. And that's also biblical, that you can defend yourself. Another one is people sometimes kill because of a feeling of superiority, and that is that they feel better than you, and so they feel that they're getting rid of a termite or an insect or something in their eyes, and we have done that psychologically in our wars. We came up with euphemisms for the Japanese and for the Viet Cong, and every time we get into a war, we try to make ourselves feel better than the opponent. And that falls into the third category as well, where you begin to not acknowledge the enemy or that person you're opposing as being human. So we did that with the Japanese in World War II. We did that with the Viet Cong in Vietnam. We did it with some of the Muslims in Desert Storm. And so we do it quite often. That's a very typical military trait, is trying to get the mindset so that you feel a little bit better than the other side. Hitler did it, calling all of his opponents Untermenschen, or lesser beings. And but the unfortunate thing about that is that once you establish that stigma prior to doing the actions, you can't control it, and it remains for a while after the conflict is over. Hey, Auslander Info. I tell you what, I have to say thank you so much. For those of you who have not subscribed to Auslander Info, he did a very, I forget how long it was, like maybe 15, 20 minutes, did a fantastic timeline going through Revelation and so just the end times and explaining where the different checkpoints are in the end times according to Revelation. A fantastic video. I strongly recommend you all go over there and view that video. I think it was a great piece of work. Thank you, sir. Oh, wow. Mary Tyndall. Saudara tinggal di Indonesia. Saya belum pernah di sana, ke sana. Tetapi mau, apa saudara berbahasa? Bahasa pertama saya belajar di Departemen Army Angkatan Darat telah bahasa Indonesia dan bahasa Malaysia. So the first two languages I studied when I went to Defense Language Institute, Monterey, was Indonesian Malay. And so I was an Indonesian linguist for the first 5 years I was in the Army, and then the last 16 years I was a Russian linguist. Okay. Now, another one, and this was a big defense during the Nuremberg trials in the end of World War II, was a lot of the German officers said that they could not be held accountable for murdering people because they were told to do it and they were just following orders. And so that's very common perception, is deflecting that guilt towards somebody else, that you were just, a subject doing what you were told to do. And yet we each have to have some sort of a stopgap in place where we don't follow illegal orders. And of course, we saw that with Lieutenant Calley and Captain Medina in Vietnam at, what was that? I think it was Calais, was the name of the village that was torn up. Really, Mary, we had the air attaché in my basic Indonesian class in Monterey, Colonel Ewing, E-W-I-N-G, and he had his wife and daughter in the class with us. And then we had the naval attaché, Captain Bell. Of course, captain in the Navy is equivalent to a colonel in the Air Force. And so we had two birds in my class, and the rest, we had a Marine Corps captain, and then the rest of us were all enlisted E3s at that time. So we had three high-ranking officers and 7 enlisted. Okay. Colonel Robert Tyndall, huh? When was that, Mary? Because I took basic Indonesian. My class was 01JN, 47-week class, 02, second class of fiscal year 71, so 0271. Oh, absolutely. I've got a case going right now that, I've got emails documenting what the other party said besides the contract when they bought my store. And she's saying, no, she never intended to fulfill the contract, that she expected me to pay for it, not hers. 1972. Wow. So, you know what? There was a lieutenant colonel Air Force in my basic Indonesian class, and we graduated April of 72. And I think he went over, yeah, so it might have been Tyndall. There's a good chance. Yeah, if he graduated in April of 72, then he was in my Indonesian class. Okay, so let me see here. And we're down here, so be part of the crowd because everybody else is doing it is another mindset. And just follow the crowd, and you'll see people pile on. And oh yeah, you'll have to tell him. So you can just tell him that you met Elkanah, Elkana, and Pak Kwe, Mr. Kwe gave me that name, Elkanah Young Ginting, Elkanah the Wise, and but that was in 1971. Yeah, we had that was quite something back then. Wow, I bet you if he's still with us, I bet you he remembers. Yeah, the mob mentality, absolutely right, Uncle Al, absolutely right. You go along just to be along. Another one of those mindsets is revenge. That you want to avenge somebody else for what they have done, either to you or to a family member. Hi, Aqua Run Girl, welcome. Another thing that's really strange is, and we were talking about this. There was a fantastic live between Sassy Girl Prepping and Prepping with Sarge, and he's a psychologist, and the discussion was around mental health in a post SHTF environment. And I recommend you go back and watch that 1 hour live. It was a fantastic live, one of the better ones I've seen. And but anyhow, and one of the things that when you have nightmares afterwards, after combat, is I stand up and look down on myself, and so I can see everything at 360 degrees. And I can smell everything. I can't hear anything, but I can smell everything. And so that's just part of that surrealism that grasps you at the moment. Even though what you're doing is justified, it's still surreal. And that, I think that's a protective mechanism because we're doing something that's totally abnormal at the time. Take care, Auslander. And then the final one is there are those who are just totally off their bunkers and do it just for the heck of it, which is crazy, crazy, crazy. So what makes a good target for a predator? On page 250. Selco talks about the fact that he interviewed an assassin type person who was, one of the hitmen for the bad guys during the Bosnian conflict, and I think it's a very impressive interview, and you can really get into the mindset of somebody. Absolutely, if you're not paying attention, if you're distracted, if you're on your cell phone, if you're fiddling with your keys, if you're head in the sky and those kinds of things. That you're exactly right, Bougie Pepper. So what the hitman, his quote in the interview with Selco was, "People weren't ready for people like me." And so I think that's one of the primary things we need to get out of these books and out of these discussions and out of these lives and getting together and understanding there are crazy people out there and they're going to do crazy things. And we have to be prepared for that. And I think that's what this chapter really emphasizes is things will not be the same. And once we release, if you see the number of people who go about shooting people for no reason whatsoever on the streets and gang violence and everything else, and you say, God, there's crazy people out there. Imagine what those people right now aren't even afraid of this rule of law, even though the law is out there. What are they going to be when there is no rule of law, when there is WROL, without rule of law? That's going to unleash them, and they're just going to be out there praying. And that's PREYING, not PRAYING. But they're going to be preying on people like us. And so I think the best thing we can do is get the mindset now that we're going to have to be even more vigilant after SHTF than we are now. So it's just something else. Okay, what makes a bad target? Thank you, Aqua Run Girl. How do you make yourself a bad target? Now, this is the same thing that applies to your home and building defensive positions around your home. If you take a look at people who are out to commit a crime, they want to commit an easy crime and get away really quickly. Wow. Right, Patterson, huh? Well, I'm from Indonesian language school. I went straight to NSA. So I worked at NSA for 3 years on the Indonesian project. Be armed and look dangerous. And another one is look dangerous and don't appear to be armed. I prefer not to carry open. I prefer to carry concealed. And the reason is because I like to have the upper hand and let them make the first move. But that's something you have to practice, because you've got to lift your shirt and draw at the same time. And make sure you practice, because there are way too many people who are going to have that gun taken away from them because they don't practice and they're fumbling and don't know what to do. So make sure you have lots and lots of practice. And I'll give you some other alternatives here in just a couple of minutes. I'll show you what I bought my wife and daughter and a couple other things. Yes, looking alert and being calm and ready and attentive to what's going on around you. And, like thinking a couple steps ahead. If you're going to be taking your groceries from the grocery store out to your car, before you leave the grocery store, have your keychain in your hand. So that you're not fumbling in your purse and focused on your purse and getting into it. Same thing, guys, focusing on where is it in my pocket and getting it out and trying to mess with it and everything else while you got a bag in your hand. Think about, what can I do in advance to prepare myself for a quick response in case somebody's going to be there? And how do I lessen myself as a target by being prepared? So yeah, Melinda, absolutely. So one of the things that we have found out about criminals, whether it be physical assaults or whether it be robberies or whether it be burglaries, they look for the simple. They don't want to have to devote any time above and beyond a quick smash and grab. So this is what they say. They say that the typical burglary, if they can't gain access within 15 seconds, they'll give up and move on somewhere else, because somewhere that night there is somewhere they can get in within 15 seconds. So if you keep your doors locked, if you keep your windows locked, and you have an alarm system or anything like that, then chances are they're going to move on. They just aren't going to focus on you unless they're aware of the fact that you have something extra special that they want that nobody else has. Yes, and so one of the things, Pat, that we can talk about here is people say you can tell a soldier a mile away by the way they walk, and so we call it military bearing. So we kind of walk in a semi-rigid way, and we have the arm swing, and it's a gated pace. You can tell a soldier when he's walking, and so that type of a person, that they are trained to defend themselves. So if you give that appearance, if you have that military bearing when you're walking, then that's going to give them a clue that, hey, this is not somebody I want to mess with right now. Yes, and that's another key thing here is most of these are going to be single people rather than groups of people. And I think we talked about that, 2 weeks ago, that safety in numbers, they're not going to attack a group of three as readily as they're going to attack a single person. So unless they're really, really good at martial arts or something. But yeah, no, very seldom do you see, unless, you'll see these robberies where maybe three people will take on an entire cafe or cafeteria or whatever, or what? Oh, did you see? I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was in the news today. 7-Eleven is going to be closing down somewhere close to a dozen 7-Elevens in LA because they're continuously being hit with robberies, and the DA is not doing anything about it. So they're just going to shut them down and not provide any service in that area so that they don't get attacked anymore. Yes, protect the elderly and the disabled and the youth as well, those toddlers and young persons. So one of my favorite quotes, let me see if I can find it here. Let me get down here. I need to get. One of my favorite quotes from the entire chapter was on page 255. And it says, "Don't simply run away from a threat, run towards safety." So you've got to always figure, when you're walking around, where's my escape route? Where will I go if anything happens? What's the best route to go? Because of my experience in the military, especially being in intelligence, there are certain things I won't do. I refuse to sit with my back to any door in any building. I happened to be at Fort Hood when they had the Lubies shooting in Killeen, right off post. And so it just happened that later on I perchance met one of the survivors of that shooting, and she had a concealed carry license and decided to leave her concealed carry in her vehicle when she went to lunch with her mother and father. And her mother and father both were victims of that. So she's never forgiven herself for not carrying while she was there. So, but where's the closest escape? How do I block this? Start thinking. If something happens, where will I go? What will I do? What's my best chances? And yeah, the 7-Elevens in LA. I think there's about a dozen of them that are going to be shut down. And yes, and Starbucks as well. There's a lot of Starbucks. I'm not sure what town it was. It might have been LA as well. But Starbucks has announced they're going to close, I think, about a half dozen Starbucks because they're continuously being robbed and nothing's happening to it. Okay, defense. Have what everyone else around you has. Why? Now, when we talk defense here, we're talking about the bang bangs. Yes, yeah, that's a very good one. Very good one. Yes. It's okay to be okay. You don't have problems. They don't have to convince you that you're ripe for a fight or that it's necessary or anything else. Hi, Tracy. Welcome. Oh, Seattle? Okay. Thanks, Uncle Al. We were at have what everyone else has around you. Why? And I think the key here is, and when I wrote the charter for our MAG here in the area, I specified this as to which ones we would prefer they have for the very reason that Selco talks about in his book, and that is interchangeability of parts, commonality of seeds, freedom seeds that you're going to be spitting out of them, so that everybody can purchase the same thing and it can be shared. Commonality of magazines that you put the Freedom Seeds into, commonality of repair parts, commonality of cleaning parts, different size bore brushes and different size patches and everything else that's going to be fantastic for that. And then the next thing he mentions right after that, when he's talking about having the commonality of it, is maintenance and making sure that you have all the maintenance gear that is required. The egg cartons that they're plastic and they usually come with like 20 dozen eggs in them or something like that. Well, that's what I have, and it's full of all the different various sizes of patches I'm going to need for the different calibers. And then I've got several bottles of solvent and oil, and I've got make sure I have 2 bore brushes for every caliber. So all that kinds of stuff. Make sure you have all of the necessary things to take care of it. I've even ordered spare parts for some of the parts, some of the things that I do. Make sure that everybody you are prepared to take care of that. Now that I want to extend that just a little bit further. Also, make sure you do it for any knives that you have. I think I showed my strop, and I have a green and white strop, and then a red strop. But you want a leather strop to hone your knife, and I hone my knife every Sunday evening. Of course, my wife is always making foul comments about, you're preparing me for the inevitable. I have to go to a different room. But anyhow, honing is putting a fine edge on it, and then sharpening is where you're going to use either a file or you're going to use a stone and get rid of the burrs and the dents and everything else that's in it. So if you take mine, hopefully you can see it here. You can see that, there it is. That's the final bevel there that you're trying to achieve. See if I can get one to shine this way. There we go. So that's what you're doing when you're honing, is you're getting that final edge right there. And that's what you want to have to make your knife real sharp. Now, what you can do is, as you're honing, it's going to take a very thin layer of those, and it's going to kind of lay a bead in the direction you hone. It's going to lay it over the side like this, and you can feel that. You can move it with your thumb. Once you get rid of that, that's when you actually have a sharp knife. Springs, shell extractors, absolutely. Bolts, firing pins. So you can get repair kits, and they aren't that expensive. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you heard it or not, but UPS announced Monday that they are no longer going to ship any Bang Bangs or associated things that go with the Bang Bangs, and that any that they have currently en route to a customer are going to be seized and destroyed. Now, Brownells, which is one of the major supply companies, says that they currently have about 30,000 packages en route. And it appears that those UPS is going to seize those and destroy them. There's going to be a lawsuit, because at the time that they shipped them, the policy was that they would ship them, and then they changed their policy mid-course. So shouldn't they have to fulfill that obligation that they had originally entered into, rather than seizing and destroying? Stones and leather straps. Absolutely. Okay, then he talks about knives, and he recommends a full tang knife. So let me show you what a full tang is. And at the same time, I can show you a World War II fighting knife, which meets all of the requirements that he's talking about. So a full tang knife, this is your piece of metal, and it goes all the way through, and you can see the metal comes all the way through back to here. So as long as the metal goes the full length of the handle and the blade, that is a full tang knife. Now, a lot of knives, what they do is they'll have what's called a rat tail. I'm going to do this the other way because it's rather sharp and I don't want to drop it and cut my hand. But anyhow, the rat tail comes down, and this is a lot of the Mora knives. It only comes down to about here, and it kind of tapers off. And then the rest of it's just, rubber grip. So some of the things he talks about with the full, number one, make sure it's a full tang knife, at least a 5-inch blade. This is a 7-inch blade. Then he says you want a handle that won't get slippery when it gets wet. And so this is the Marine Corps World War II fighting knife that's made by K-Bar. And so these leather grips here, notice how they have these channels, and then they're leather so that they don't get slippery so this is a World War II U.S. Marine Corps fighting knife. And what to do with the sheath. And you can get these, K-Bar still makes them. You can get them on Amazon or any good knife company. Then in Vietnam, Gerber came out with a fighting knife. And this is more like the trench knife that the Brits used in World War I. So this is also a full tang, comes down to here. But the difference is it's got 2 edges so that you can slash either direction. And it's got a very sharp point. It's another 7-inch knife other than a 5-inch. But this is a stiletto, if you will, type of a piercing knife as well as a slashing knife. This one's never been used. I never found a reason to use it. Never found a reason to carry it. I got it at the PX in Fort Meade when I was at NSA in 1972. So, but it's never been used. Terrible. Some other things you might want to consider. I have a link. I get a small commission if you buy. But I bought one of these, and this is what the box looks like. It's called the Life Shield Self-Defense Kit. So I bought one for my wife. I bought one for my daughter, and it comes in a nice little kit like this. It has 3 components. So component number 1 is a pepper gel spray. And notice this is a spray. So you want your pepper spray to go in a stream and not in a spray, okay? Because the spray is going to mist. It'll come back on you. When you have the spray, the stream, then that's going to be more directed at what you're aiming at. So this is a very simple one. All you have to do is push down on the top. So the problem is carrying it where it doesn't become engaged. Then the kit also has a combination of a flashlight, and then it also, when you turn the red on, you have an arcer, and I can't get it to arc because I have to have something in there for it to arc against. But this puts about 20,000 volts of electricity against somebody when you touch them with it. So that's another deterrent as well. And then the third portion of it is that there in the key ring, it has an emergency buzzer. And this, you can hear it a couple blocks away when that's activated. So my wife doesn't use hers. My daughter uses hers. But that's the self-defense kit that's available from Frog & Company. So I can recommend that. What I do is I normally have something on my right hip, but unfortunately, I now have and it's still kind of a little bit painful. I have about an 8-inch scar where that would typically ride in underneath my belt. And so I don't carry that right now, and I don't like to cross draw. I haven't trained in that. I have a shoulder holster, but that's kind of hard to wear with a t-shirt, so I'm just not doing that right now. So in its place, what I've done is I've gotten a monkey fist that I keep with my car keys. So this is a steel ball bearing, a 1-inch ball bearing, and it's wrapped in paracord, and then you just swing it, and it's, it can become a very effective thing, especially if you hit somebody in the temple, in the bridge of the nose, in the throat, or on the face. And don't spray in the wind. As a matter of fact, I think Jim Croce put it best, and he said, don't, what do you say? You don't spit in the wind. You don't step on Superman's cape. You don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim. So, those are 4 good rules. Don't spit in the wind. Don't step on Superman's cape. Don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger, and don't mess with Jim. Pepper spray is a lot faster than CS as far as reaction time. So if you can get pepper spray, get it. And where did I get what, Melinda? The monkey fist. I got the monkey fist on Amazon, so you can just do an Amazon search for monkey fist keychain. I got the kit for my wife and daughter from Frogging Company. So on any of my previous videos, you'll see a link to that where you can go directly to that. I got this at the PX at Fort Meade, Maryland, and I got this one at the PX in Fort Ord, California in 1974. So, yes, Bouger, the gel pepper spray is fantastic. So that pretty much takes it up for violence. What do you all think? Is there anything significant that you got out of it that you'd like to enforce or share with other people? Can't get the pepper spray. Well, you can get bear spray though, can't you, Aqua Run Girl? Don't they have bear spray in Canada? You can use that if you can. Another thing that you might want to do when you're walking to your car, and I can't do it because I've got all these D-rings and everything else on mine, but if you have, let me take this off. That'll make it easier. I'll show you how to do this. This is something they taught us self-defense when I was, where was it? I guess this was in Monterey. But for women especially, when you walk, if you take your keys and put one key in between each finger, so like this kind of. So now what you've got is you got keys protruding from your fist, and you walk to your car like that, then anything you can swipe at them and scratch them, or you can poke and it becomes basically a puncture wound. So if you can put your keys in between your fingers, that's something that almost anybody can do at any time. Wasp spray works good, on the fence says. No more bear spray, huh? Okay. No bear spray either. Wow. Okay. Absolutely, Bouger. I think that this is, no matter what you're going to do, like I said, there have been so many people who have been injured or even killed, fumbling with their defensive tool because they hadn't practiced with it and they hadn't, drawn it. They hadn't practiced with spraying it or anything else. There was a story here in Austin and I used to keep pepper spray right next to the cash register. There was a story here in Austin of a woman who was at a 7-Eleven or one of those convenience stores, and somebody came up to her and was being threatening, and she grabbed the pepper spray and had never practiced with it and actually sprayed herself instead of spraying the aggressor, and that was not what she wanted to do. So you need to practice, make sure it's pointed in the right direction, and survive. That's the key thing. On the fence, great idea. So let me see, what did on the fence say? Wash spray, yeah. Well, and I think, and we kind of in our fiction book club, we kind of got that sense of what life is going to be like without rule of law and the violence that's going to occur, because we had 3 different very violent interactions between the Stonemonters and the outside world, if you will, and how they handled that, and when you first look at it, you say, "My, that was that necessary?" And then you say, "Well, how else could they have handled it?" So I think once we are in SHTF, full-blown SHTF, once we are in a world without rule of law, I think that all of us are going to have to make that mental adjustment. And remember, that's what Selco was talking about, that one guy said nobody was prepared or was ready for what I was willing to do. And so, now is our opportunity to get that mindset of, they aren't going to do that to me. I'm going to be prepared, and I will react before they have a chance to do anything to me. So that's a very wise statement, Bouger. Nothing's written in stone. I don't think most people carry martial arts weapons with them on a normal day-to-day basis. But yeah, that's a good idea. I took a class. The Indonesians fought with sticks during World War II, and they had a very good stick combat system. But then they also taught one for their older people, and you can use either an umbrella or a cane. And so they came up with a cane fighting system. And so it's easy for me with a cane, that I can use my cane as a defensive tool, and it doesn't look anywhere out of sight. As a matter of fact, the other evening, I did my first walking in the house without the cane, and I told my wife I feel like Festus. So if anybody knows what Festus is, you can comment down below, but you're going to be giving away your age if you do. So that's why the cane is important to me. Okay, so that's about it. Anybody have anything else that would like to talk about? Well, we are right at 1 hour and 2 minutes. And thank you all so much for showing up. So the next week is going to be 80 pages. And so the entire chapter is going to be about 80 pages. So we're going to do chapter 5, and it's first aid and hygiene. And I think hygiene we're going to stress a little bit more than the first aid, simply because I think that's one of the areas that gets most overlooked. And so we'll talk about that next week when we get together at 8 o'clock Tuesday evening. And Uncle Al, I don't know why that's happening. That I apologize that there were 2 channels again. I'm only using StreamYard, so it should only be appearing in StreamYard. But I'll try to go in and find out how I can get all that other stuff taken off of YouTube. YouTube, so that we don't have that confusion anymore. Now, have we prepared different? How have I prepared differently, or how have others? Here's Selco has reinforced some of my concepts, and I think one of the biggest problems that I have in our community is people get extremely dogmatic. They pick one scenario, World War III. They pick one point in time, the day after, and then everything is focused on that preparation and what they need for that one time. But there are several different scenarios that could come forth, and within those scenarios, there's timelines. So one of the things we don't do, and we quite often get into confrontations or disagreements over, I'm thinking of economic collapse and I'm 3 months into it. You're thinking nuclear warfare and you're 1 day into it. And of course, what we're saying as far as preparations and needs and absolute must-haves are going to be different because we have different scenarios and different points in the timeline. And I think that Selco does a very good job of pointing that out. That I think his example about candles. Candles were extremely valuable for barter for the first 3 to 6 months of the war, but then people became accustomed to not having any light at night, so that the candles didn't have any value. Whereas a lighter had a lot more value later on in the scenario. So I think that's the biggest takeaway is we have to be multifaceted in how we plan. We have to think about what are the different scenarios and then what does a timeline do. So I don't think that happenstance bartering is going to take place. So I don't buy things specifically to barter. And Selco talks about that. He talks about what would make great barter, but don't go out and get it, because chances are you're looking for what you didn't buy, because instead of buying what you needed, you bought something to barter. Why not just go ahead and get what you need? And then if there's excess of it, that's probably what other people are looking for. So he says that the 5 things that are most important are food, water, a source of fire ignition, self-defense, and medication. And so we focus on those 5 areas. And I'll have an announcement about medication here next week. So, and how we can solve that problem as well. Thank you so much, On the Fence. I greatly appreciate that. Never heard of Festus, huh? Well, you have to go back to an old TV show called Gunsmoke. And Festus was the deputy. And he had a broken leg and walked with a limp. And so he was a very severe limp. So now that I have my broken hip, I walk like Festus. Okay. Well, and so, and going back to what Selco talked about, and I kind of, trite expressions don't do well with me either. I believe that at some point we're going to get back into some sort of a monetary exchange program, and printed dollars probably will not be the exchange medium. And so if we look back, so water, food, self-defense, fire ignition, so a lighter, matches, etc., and then medication. So medication and fire starting are the last 2 there, Boucher. But one of the things that, I hear these people, and they're usually the younger preppers who think that they know everything, and they've been doing it for 3 months. And they, when you start talking about precious metals, they say, well, you can't eat silver. And I'll say, you can't eat a canteen either, but you have it. Well, I can use the canteen for something. Well, yeah, later on in the scenario, you can use your silver too. So, people kind of get very dogmatic in where they are in a scenario, and they think they know everything. And I think we need to expose ourselves to a lot more than what just that one scenario, that one point in time, and say, there are times that other things may become valuable, and maybe we should consider having a little bit of that, and not to the point of excluding other things, but we should be more holistic in what we're doing. I even though I have a lot of medication, I have an awful lot of natural oils. I have I have books on aromatherapy and other things. So, there's a lot of things I think that we need that, not just one solution. So we need to be a little bit more open in how we view what we'll be looking at. And a Bible. Antibiotics were extremely important to him. So I've just entered into an agreement with Jace Medical. And I'm going to be announcing that here. I'll have the link and everything. But Jace Medical is the company that you can contact and get 5 different kinds of antibiotics shipped to you. I'm allergic to azithromycin, which is one of the 5. And so they've replaced that. And what I really like is my discussion with the physician. I take some other medications. So I take one for a sleep disorder called tramadol. Anyhow, it's a sleeping pill for people who have combat nightmares. And but anyhow, I take it, and so when you're taking one of the antibiotics, it interacts badly with that pill. So he said, make sure you understand that when you take this antibiotic, that you need to reduce the dosage of this, and probably only take it one night out of every 3. So very good medical information from a doctor. So I'll be posting that link when I make the announcement and I'll do a video about that. I saw that Apartment Prepper just listed one as well. I think it was Apartment Prepper that she's entered into an agreement with Jace Medical as well. Absolutely. And that's the perfect, and that's the best attitude, Bouger, is you may not be able to eat it, but you can trade it for something else to get. Okay, so she did. So you can go to Apartment Prepper, just put out a video, make sure you watch it, and she'll have a $10 discount coupon on there, I'm fairly certain. And so watch her video, and if you're interested in getting some antibiotics that will take care of a lot of different things. And let me tell you, I am scared. I'm scared about the quality of water, typhoid, typhus, dysentery, cholera. There are so many different things that are going to come about that you're going to need antibiotics for if you don't take care of it. And that's why I said I want to focus on the hygiene portion next week in that chapter. I think we've all pretty much gotten the first aid down. What we don't do is, do you have a porta potty? Do you have sufficient amount of soap? Are you going to be, and I get upset when people talk about doing suturing or stapling of wounds, and they've never done it before. They don't know how to do it, but they got the kit. And you're adding 2 puncture wounds every time you put a stitch in. So that's going to be very unhygienic. You're going to cause infections. And so making sure you have the right antibiotics, and even topical antibiotics, is going to be critical. So that's why I want to focus on the hygiene portion of it next week. And that's going to be critical. So absolutely. Yes, I think both of us can say that we both 100% support it, believe in it. No, it's not fish antibiotics. These are actually prescribed by a physician. And there's 5 different antibiotics that come in the kit. I have them written down here. I know there's doxycycline. I know there's azithromycin. Let me see here. Where did I write it? Ciprofloxacin. But no, there are 5 prescription pharmaceutical grade antibiotics, and it's prescribed by a doctor. So it is human antibiotics. So yeah, very good product. Okay. So looking forward to next week, do a little bit of studying, focus on the hygiene portion of it and how we're going to keep from getting those infections that will require the antibiotics. So with that, remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Let me get my Bible down, because you know how I like to end this. And it's so short, I should have it memorized, but oh my gosh. This is how you shall bless the Israelites. Say unto them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Do me a favor. Take care. Bye-bye.